always the same thing.
So there we go. I hope that our live stream kicks in a second.
We can see it. Just recorded.
There's a live stream going on. Oh my God, I can see myself. So, I mean, everybody's watching us, right? So, Joao, give it away.
It's me, my turn. Oh, okay. So, first of all, this will be funny because I was preparing the presentation and Stefan, 5 minutes before, said, oh no, we are not using that presentation. We are improvising. So let's see. Well, welcome everyone to our second Coding Earth meetup. This one will be funny. We'll try to keep it short this time on the intro part, but we have a disclaimer to make. We won't have the Akshak from Dubai that he was talking about Next.js, but we have a late come to the game. That's Lars. He's here with us, and he's talking about TypeScript. So I think we can go for the second slide. And who wants to pick this up?
First of all, who are we actually?
Hi, I'm Lars from Stuttgart, from Leipzig. Where am I? Where am I? Who am I? I'm Lars from Leipzig. I'm the front-end developer from Leipzig. That's it.
I'm Thomas. I'm from Stuttgart. I'm not a developer at all. Probably the only one in this crew right now.
Very qualified since you're from Stuttgart. So my name is Stefan and I'm from Berlin. We kicked this thing off 4 years ago. And this is where we'll hand it back to Joao and share some slides for you so you know who we really are. I think I have to kick somebody now.
Yeah, and I'm Joao from Portugal.
Here we go.
Okay, so today we have 3 great talks, but first let me say a bit about Coding Earth. So our mission is to be a friendly open hub for developers. So everyone is invited to talk, to host, and to suggest and code. We have only one rule: it must be code-centric. This means all contributions must be focused on dev-related topics. So now for the third slide, who wants to pick it up? It has to be like this. I think it's more dynamic, right?
This one is actually interesting.
Okay. Yeah, as you can see now, we are giving this meetup via Crowdcast. Crowdcast is quite interesting because you have a comment section where everyone can comment and read and interact with each other, and you can raise on the bottom section of Crowdcast, you have the Ask a Question button where you can raise questions to the speaker, which you can either respect and answer right in his talk, or you can see at the end of his talk and give the answers then, and other people can also comment on the questions and give thumbs up for the questions to get more attentions to this and so on. Also, this is live streamed to YouTube and will be also available afterwards as video on YouTube.
And if you want to appear on screen, just make a good question and Stefan will pull you right into the camera and you will appear on the live stream.
Right, you only have to raise your hand and then we'll maybe invite you to show your face on the screen if you got a web camera.
Oh yeah. And now regarding our speakers.
One thing, there's also the clip moment button at the bottom I want to still mention. When you see something very interesting you want to share with someone else, on the bottom left of Crowdcast, there's this clip moment button, and then you get, I think, a 10-second rewind, and then the up to 30 seconds or 1 minute or some time period is recorded, and you can share it with someone who will be interested in this.
Not to mention, you can also ask questions on YouTube. So this time we'll have the YouTube chat open. So don't post anything bad. If you do, we will kick you and ban you, whatever. If you do something good, we will try to get you onto the screen on Crowdcast.
Oh, yeah. So regarding our speakers for today, we have Franziska. She will be reporting a topic of inclusion. And this is something that no one talks about, at least since I'm in the web development. I didn't hear a lot about this, and she will be talking about how can we increase inclusion in the workspace for developers living with disabilities and chronic illnesses. Then we have Joe Bender from New York. We will give you an overview about Blockstack. Clarity, and this is not clear for me, so I hope he explains the clarity part, and their virtual hackathon, when you can earn some prizes. And then our late entry, it's Lars, he's here with us from Leipzig, and don't be scared of TypeScript, get type to die debugging. Okay, so I think Franziska is already, it's ready for stage.
We have seen her already. This is Waal and Weiter, and I think we have to kick somebody else. So first of all, let's invite Mrs. Franziska. And it's going on.
Maybe she left.
I think there she is.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Hello.
I'm here.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello, hello. So, can I share my screen already?
I'm toggling my video out. Let's try it.
Okay.
I'll also talk with the others.
Oh,
so
it's
give it away for Franziska. How now, first of all? Like, you have to clap virtually somehow.
Stefan, it says there are no more seats left at the event, so it doesn't allow me to share at this point.
No? Okay.
Yeah, just kick me. It's okay.
Then I'll kick you out. Sorry.
Yeah, it still says that, so.
Try it now.
Yeah, now it works. Wonderful. Awesome. So you should see my slides. Just about now.
Yeah, looking good.
Awesome. Great.
Very nice.
So, let's kick this off. Thank you for the introduction, Joao. I really appreciate you delving into the aspect that nobody's talking about it, but now I am. This is basically what I'm here for. So a bit about me. What do I do? What am I? Who am I? My name is Franziska Haug, obviously, and I'm a people lead in engineering. A people lead is a person who manages IT teams, but not from a technical point of view. We have teams under us from a disciplinary and a coaching point of view. So I currently have teams, 2 teams. I will have 3. And I coach the developers, but also POs, designers on the team. So basically anything along the engineering or engineering department spectrum. I'm also a freelance consultant, mostly for DevRel, but also community and some aspects of recruiting. And you can find me on Twitter under this handle. So tweet. We need to get the word out on what can be done. So currently in my freelance work, I also am knee-deep in researching developer insights, specifically for Germany. So if you want to know anything about developers and their stats, job market, for example, what kind of groups they're in, what they prefer, which languages and so forth, then I'd be happy to answer those questions. So basically, why am I talking about this topic? I live with chronic illnesses myself, I have to say, which are not necessarily visible at first glance. And hence, a lot of people will sort of categorize me into the, oh, she's healthy category, which I'm not. But it also helped me to develop a really, really high level for empathy. And working with developers on a daily basis and knowing their needs and what they need to thrive, obviously, the question has come up for me in my advocacy. And what is funny for me is that when we look at sort of accessibility, there's always, especially in the workplace and when it comes to developers, there's always this perception of, oh, he's a blind developer, she's a deaf developer, oh my God. So you see articles like these popping up, how to get a developer job when you're blind, or the day we had a blind coder judged by skills and experience, not disability. Or even what it's like to be a blind software engineer at Amazon, which is kind of saying that it's out of the ordinary to be a blind developer. Granted, there are not a lot of blind developers. There are more deaf developers and developers with other conditions, but it still feels for me like we are so many, we have such a big spectrum of chronic illnesses and disabilities that these kind of articles shouldn't actually be news headlines. The same goes for, let's say, the deaf developers. There are also articles like being a deaf developer. What does it mean? What does it mean? And funnily enough, I have a very good acquaintance who for years has now organized the Deaf IT conference. So if you didn't know that, there is actually a conference on IT topics, not necessarily coding only, but IT topics in general, that takes place in Munich almost every year. So there is a forum actually where people can exchange, which I find really, really cool. And also one of the excerpts is that coming up, I will organize a meetup on neurodiversity. And I'm super proud of the fact that I got Ian McDonald as a speaker, who's Microsoft CTO for startups in Western Europe. And he lives with Asperger's syndrome and also has a lot of challenges that when he's at the workplace, he deals with. So as I said, there is a wide spectrum. We have a lot of different conditions and situations. And my personal recommendation before I delve into sort of the details is in Germany specifically, but not only in Germany, there's the Accessibility Club. They have a couple of events and meetups. I co-organized the meetup in Berlin, so happy to get your suggestions if you want to speak or if you know anyone or feel that there's a topic that needs to be brought to the table. So when we look at accessibility for developers, what does that actually mean? What does it say? First of all, we need to understand what actually a disability is. So a disability can most often be a visible disability. Someone is wearing glasses and using a stick, so this person is obviously blind. Someone is in a wheelchair, so there obviously is some kind of disability that it does not enable them to walk or to walk long distances. But interesting enough, we have, as I said, a wide spectrum out there. And we have non-visible disabilities as well. Most often motoric disabilities, so people cannot move really well, but you don't see it at first glance, right? You wouldn't, just looking at a person, know that they're disabled or they would be in the category of being disabled. And then also we have temporary disabilities. Imagine how many people go through surgery and maybe have to do some rehabilitation afterwards, or have some sort of maybe have been in an accident or something like that. And then there also is a disability, but it's only temporary. It goes away after a while. Still, it does affect the person. And then we have this whole vast spectrum of chronic illnesses out there where I classically always quote the diabetic people or the asthmatic people because they're sort of among the more known ones. But then you also have people with chronic illnesses like me, whose illnesses are not very well researched and are very rare. There is, by the way, a Rare Disease Day, which is on the 29th of February, very fittingly, because it's a rare day. And there are other initiatives as well. And then also we have neurodiversity, which in itself is not a disability, but it can lead to mannerisms that might be confusing for other people. For example, people on the autism spectrum, people with ADHD or dyslexia, they might need some accommodations as well to help them thrive at the workplace. And I talk about disabilities, and that's fine and dandy, but what we need to understand is that accessibility is something that is there to enable access for everyone, not just for people with a disability or condition. It's the design of products, devices, services, or environments so that they are usable by everyone. And by thinking about how you can actually incorporate not just people with a disability, but everyone that works around you, that already gets you in a really, really good mindset. And that will also transfer, interestingly enough, to the products that you're building, because you already have that awareness among your colleagues, right? So just to make that clear, accessibility is for the average person next to you and me. It's for the disabled. It's for everyone. And interestingly enough, when we look at accessibility, it impacts the developer experience. Developer experience is sort of this buzzword that we use where we make products really, really well usable so that the developer who uses them has not only success, but also has fun using them. And a lot of the products, the tools, the things that developers use are actually don't have that aspect when it comes to accessibility. So designing it for everyone actually makes sure that people who, whatever kind of accommodation or support they need, will have a great developer experience. So let's delve into the how. What can you actually do? What kind of situations are there? And I believe firmly in storytelling. I'm a storyteller. So today I brought you the stories of 3 fabulous people and what they are faced with. First off is our dear SAMIRA, who is a backend developer. SAMIRA was promoted to senior backend developer at Singapore SAS provider Calendar Candle. She has been legally deaf since the age of 5. She experiences severe back pains due to arthrosis. Samira is a person who needs time to realign and focus. So she often needs to withdraw, have a bit of a place for herself. And she chose Calendar Candle specifically because there was already a hard of hearing developer on the staff. So she wouldn't feel alone, she would feel supported. They have experience with people who are like her, and they know how to handle that. She also finds it challenging to interact with her colleagues, specifically in the exchange on work. When she participates in the daily, that often is a challenge for her to get the updates. Samira is a person, she can lip read quite well, but not always. And especially with Singapore, there are people of a lot of different backgrounds. English is not their first language oftentimes. So it's a bit challenging for her to actually categorize what they are saying. So she lacks a bit of support in this. And when you look around or when you imagine having Samira as your colleague, what can you actually do to support Samira in her work? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot a point. Samira also wishes that sign language interpreters were available more often. They do come to the office for the big gatherings and they interpret, but she would wish that this service would be available more often. So how can you actually support Samira if she was your colleague? Subtitles. Being in this Corona situation in lockdown and having all these virtual meetups has shown us the power of the tools that we actually use. When you are in a daily, when you are in a refinement, when you are in a retro, and people interact with each other, and there is a lot of discussion going on, Samira might not be able to follow. But what you can do is you can use, for example, video technology, have a call, and then automatically have subtitles created. A tool that does that really well is, for example, Google Hangouts. Of course, you would call in sort of into the void if you're all in the same room when Corona thing ends and we are all out of lockdown again. But again, it's a very simple and effective tool to enhance her experience to participate in her surroundings. Have her use a cell phone. I used to co-work with a dev developer and he was basically on the cell phone all the time. Why? Because it was difficult for him to express himself with other people. So what he did was he put his thoughts and what he wanted to say into the cell phone that he carried with him. And then people could read it and they could type out things to him. So you didn't even need to have sign language as a bridge. Imagine working on a product together and Samira wants to give some input. She can do that with that very, very easily. And again, sign language interpreters to have that is good. A tip from me, especially in Germany, in other countries it might be different, but in Germany, there are actually funds available from the government to pay for sign language interpreters at the workplace. And once you have one person there who might need the services of that interpreter, then oftentimes it's, as in Samira's case, it's really easy to have a second and third person because the cost, even if you're not paying for it, but the costs stay the same, but you can actually have sort of a bit of a multiplying effect. Workspace setup. For Samira, it might not be good to be in a space where she cannot see where people approach her because she cannot hear that they are approaching, right? And especially if you have a question, you want to clarify something on maybe some of the code that she wrote, have her be in a place where she can look around, she can see what is going on in her surroundings so that she knows that someone is coming and has maybe a question to ask for her. Also, ergonomic devices would help Samira, obviously, with her back problems. That's a given, basically. And one of the things that are not really well sort of known or well spread in the workplace are quiet or oftentimes medical rooms that are being used for that. You probably all had some time where you were like, oh my God, if I just could code for 3 hours uninterruptedly in a very quiet space, that would be great. That is also what a quiet room can work for, but it's specifically for people who need to retreat for a while, maybe reassemble, just have some noise reduction, whatever it is. But that would be something that would help Samira, especially when she needs to realign and refocus. So that was Samira. Let's have another look at Charlie. Charlie is a QA engineer. And Charlie is lead QA at London gaming studio GameBus, and they are a wheelchair user. So Charlie uses a wheelchair. They are able to walk very short distances. This might be confusing to you because you ask yourself, okay, but they are using a wheelchair, why can they walk short distances? Not all people who user we unnecessarily completely or don't have use of their legs anymore. Sometimes they do have that, and it's just a support or help to get around and to be a bit more fast and to be a bit more quick. But that is something that Charlie also struggles with. Their colleagues don't really understand that for them it's very important that they have this tool as well, but they can also walk short distances. Charlie also has an undisclosed autoimmune disease. Charlie fears the team's planning days. Why is that? Because in this specific company, the planning days always take place in a hotel or an event space because the engineering department is that big. And for Charlie, they are unaware beforehand whether there's an elevator, what the distances are. So it's really difficult to estimate that beforehand. And specifically when there are different teams in different rooms, then for Charlie, that can be very challenging to move in between. Charlie can, because of their autoimmune disease, not make use of the provided food, obviously. And Charlie feels lonely, as they are the only one in the company who are different or perceived as different, at least in their environment. So sometimes it can feel a little bit challenging to be the only one who has something or is different. And that is what Charlie basically is dealing with. So how can you support Charlie if Charlie was your colleague? Desk setup is very important for Charlie because they need to be close to, for example, the toilets, so they don't have to walk long distances, especially when it comes to tooling setup and so forth. Sometimes having 3 monitors might be good for one person because then you can see code on one monitor, you can have maybe your chat on another monitor and so forth. I do have direct reports that have this kind of setup. For Charlie, that might be a bit more challenging because Charlie has difficulties moving around, especially with the upper torso. So desk setup and how desk is actually positioned can already make a big change. Charlie also enjoys remote working because with remote working, they don't have the challenge of moving around that much, and they can also eat at home, prepare their food. But at the same time, obviously, if the team is not ready to be in remote working mode, because a lot of the processes around development focus on being close to each other, that could also be challenging. So think about that. Maybe there is a way to ensure flexibility, that there are more home office days, or that there are tools. Pair programming is a very, very good point. I'm sure you all currently struggle with pair programming. My direct reports, actually, we have a lot of exchanges on that. So if there is the right tooling in place, if there is something where 2 or 3 people, buzzword mob programming and so forth, can look at a screen, and it doesn't matter in which location they are, and they see what the other person is typing and working on, that's really great. People who are out, people who are open about maybe living with a condition or with a disability, that supports Charlie really well because we can look at tooling all day long. We can look at accessibility, accessible tools. We can look at developer experience. But if you are the only one in a team or in a company or department, then how would that make you feel, right? So the more people are actually confident, they feel safe, so the environment is safe that they can speak about that. That is actually the biggest support that Charlie can have. And again, in the same vein, weakness is accepted. You don't have to be sort of this super coder who sits there for 10, 12, 14 hours a day and types away and produces the most amazing code. It's not about that. If we accept boundaries, if we accept that people have different maybe time zones or different time periods where they are productive, where people want to finish on time, maybe because they want to go home to their family, that all supports people like Charlie because they see that there is balance and the company doesn't expect them to just have output. But in Charlie's case, obviously, it would be testing for 14 hours a day. Planning obviously could also be done remotely if necessary. There are ways and means to do that, and so forth. Let's look at our third and final example. It's KWAMI, and he's a technical writer. KWAMI recently joined Action, the provider of an accessibility suite in New York. He immigrated to the US to have better working conditions. Where he comes from in Ghana, there were good conditions, but he felt that he had even better chances in the US. KWAMI has visual impairment, but he doesn't disclose what kind of visual impairments he has. He just essentially needs good contrasts. And because of that, he occasionally uses the company screen reader. So he can, as a technical writer, he can type very well, very efficiently, but to check a bit and to see what he wrote, the screen reader actually helps him in that. And also with the code, obviously, that he wrote, if he does that occasionally. He's supported by colleagues with design reviews, however, because KWAMI, because of the fact that he needs good contrast and some of the things are not really well visible to him, he cannot sort of do the final step of this article looks good with the pictures that we have put in. So he needs support by his colleagues in that. But he's also disappointed that Action caters well to his needs. So he is very well set up with the tooling that he has, but it constantly disregards employees with less severe illnesses or illnesses that are perceived to be less severe, especially in his department. So how can you support KWAMI and his colleagues? Again, screen readers is one of those examples. Screen readers is actually sort of the core when we look at accessibility for developers, because especially blind developers have amazing setups. They don't even need to use or don't even have a screen. Oftentimes they just have code read out to them via screen readers. And interestingly enough, Windows does that better than Mac. That was some of the things where we always have the stereotype, right, that Mac is sort of oftentimes the preferred choice, but for blind coders or technical writers, as in KWAMI's case, it's actually probably Windows would be a better support, because the built-in screen reader is better and there's also more availabilities for other screen readers. Voice technology can always help, right? And think about, especially in a team setting as well, let's think about a fact where KWAMI maybe works really well together or really closely together with another developer, and the developer provides the code and KWAMI provides the text. And when they need to interact, obviously KWAMI needs to understand the code, and having that read out can really, really help. But then when we look at other aspects of things that can be done is, for example, anti-bias training, just to understand where KWAMI is coming from and to understand people that might have, as KWAMI is concerned about, less severe illnesses and so forth. And coaching is something that I can definitely recommend, being a coach myself in the workplace and enabling people to brainstorm, to be more aware of situations, to change their language, mindset, and so forth. And since we have the code rule, I always also brought you an example for a tool. And thank you again to Lars, who was marvelous in setting that up for me and together with me. This is an example for code where you have better contrast. So for a person like KWAMI, who looks at a screen and it's just basically all very repetitive and monotone, he wouldn't probably be able to pick out sort of things that he needs to write a really, really great article for documentation purposes, for explanation purposes. So in this instance, he uses this tool that he builds into his IDE, and then he can actually see the different aspects a bit better because they have different colorings, and that helps him immensely. So this is one of those wonderful tools that we have to enable developers to do their job and to thrive in the workplace. So to summarize, I could have probably talked 15 minutes about which kind of tools to use. There are a lot of really cool tools out there. There is a lot of variety, a lot of availability. It's just a question of which is actually the best one and what do you actually use. Personally, I would recommend, if you're active on social media, if you're active in the communities, seek the exchange with people that might not be as super healthy or might have something that they openly live with, because that already expands your horizon and you will already develop that sort of mindset that you need to recognize situations where you can support colleagues even more. But all in all, I just want to leave you with that thought of, do you even perceive a difference between, let's say, normal and unusual? And how do you perceive people with disabilities and chronic illnesses? How do you talk to them? I always say that this is just one aspect of us, and we have lots of other things that we bring to the table. But at the same time, having sort of this consciousness for, hey, the person next to you, even though you don't see it, might have something, and maybe with a little tool or a little change in a setup, or even with a mind change in the way I use language, I can actually support that person even better, which enables us to have great teamwork and to build great products together at the end of the day. So this is what I want to leave you with. The most important tool you can have that's available to you, that's your heart. That's the understanding, that's the embracing, that is even the openness to the thought that not everything is as it seems at first glance. This already enables you to be in such a good state and to support your colleagues from your perspective, from the perspective of an employer, or to advocate with an employer. And as a person living with chronic illnesses myself, I can tell you, if you have that mindset, you will be our favorite person for life, and we will love collaborating with you. So just to wrap up, where did I get all this info from? Obviously, I have my personal experiences with bias and all those other things. But again, a community is a great source. Twitter specifically, there are developers out there who openly live with neurodiversity, with being blind, or with having other conditions, and they talk about this a lot. They reflect about this a lot. And this is one of the reasons why, as I said, I'm organizing this meetup where we will talk about what does it mean to be neurodiverse in tech. And the wonderful people with disabilities community in general, I cannot thank them enough. They are my sort of comrades in arms, and I get a lot reflected of the things that I might not know about or that I don't deal with. But all in all, thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much for reflecting. And most importantly, thank you for being an ally to your fellow developers. Thank you.
Thank you, Franziska. I hope, since I have some latency, that you can see Mr. Picard clapping for you.
I see him now, yeah.
Okay.
Very slowly, very slowly.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm on Linux. The applause is a little bit weird. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I can close this one now, I guess. Here we go. In the meanwhile, we got a question on YouTube, actually. Or it's not really a question, but Robert Douglas, maybe you even know him. It's really,
of course I know him.
Yeah, he's quite a celebrity, I'd say. He says that Google Meets with real-time closed captions radically improved our communication with our hearing impaired colleagues. So did you try out the Google Meet, the new one?
I did intermittently, especially for the accessibility meetup, the last one we had as well, and I will use it again for the next meetup. We didn't have anyone on the call who was hearing impaired, but still sometimes, and that's sort of the point that I try to bring across. Sometimes it's not just about being hearing impaired. Sometimes maybe you have dry eyes on that day. And just reading something, or you have had so many impressions on that day that the focus might not be super well on that day. So just having subtitles might help more than just the hearing impaired. It actually enables accessibility for everyone, because you never know how a person feels on that day or what kind of support they will need on that day.
That's some quite great insights. Cool. So if anybody else has a question, feel absolutely free to use the chat on the right-hand side. You can even use the Ask a Question box on the lower side. And a little hint, since I'm also a developer, if you're on Linux, you might face some problems with Crowdcast, actually. So if something's not working, don't worry, it's also not working on my machine. Do my very best.
And Stefan, can I add on to that? In my experience, what I say, there's a lot of information, and you need to process it, obviously. And nobody is expecting anyone to just be like, oh yeah, I'm an accessibility expert now. I'm going to know all the tools and all the perspectives. But if there are any questions after that, because you thought about it, I'm available for you anytime. Don't hesitate to reach out. Twitter, LinkedIn, smoke signals. It doesn't matter. I will answer your question.
I can also put your Twitter handle here, actually. It's _Franzi, if you want so.
Yeah, please. Yes.
Francis,
My DMs are open.
I have to put a URL. I will just put some URL. Don't click it. You can just read it, I guess. Oh my God. It's close to usable. Okay, we have to start with HTTP, sorry. Now, really amazing. Do you have people with disabilities in your own team, actually, Franziska?
Not openly, not at this point. But I wouldn't exclude it because as I said, sometimes we don't know what a person is going through or what they have, right? Look at me. I look healthy, but I'm not. Actually, there are some indicators that show that I'm not, but you would have to know what it's about, right? So I don't want to force anyone to admit something that they might not be comfortable with. First of all, it's about the environment, right? And creating an environment where they do feel like I can talk about this and nobody's going to judge me. You would not believe, Stefan, how many people I talk to who are on the chronic illness and disability spectrum who tell me I look functioning and that's why I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything because I fear repercussions for work and so forth. When I was on my job search, I went on a stage and talked about my chronic illnesses and it was recorded. And I don't know how many rejections I got, maybe because of that. Germany is still a society where, this is perceived as being weak sometimes. But yeah, so I don't know. At this point, I don't think. I just remembered, yes, we do have someone. Yes, but it's very recent. Sorry, I was thinking about that. Yeah, but we do have a person, but they are not, right, let's say, out. They shared it with me, but they're not out. Yeah.
Joao said that he has a question. I'm not sure if he meant that seriously, but I will just invite him to screen. And Joao, this is your question time now. It's working.
Of course, it's serious. Come on. So, Franziska, my question is, I noticed that sometimes when you have a junior and a senior, sometimes the senior has some trouble to get into the junior zone and do a step back to catch the junior up. And do you feel that this might be an issue with some people with disability as well? How do you bend a team culture not to deliver so much, but to pick up the person in need?
Yeah. That is a really, really good point. Hierarchy does play a role, an important role. But I do see it from sort of the same vein when we look at it, right? If you enable an atmosphere where everybody feels comfortable, they would also feel comfortable sharing, and they would also feel comfortable being vulnerable or being perceived as vulnerable. I personally have had good successes, and my colleagues as well, my people lead colleagues, with coaching. And I talk about the concept of coaching in the sense of not training or mentoring or forcing anyone to do something, but to be in an inquisitive frame of mind and helping people get to their own realizations by asking the right questions, and enabling them to, for example, give very proactive feedback, to be open to feedback. That already in the interaction creates an atmosphere where people see that I can go up to a person, give constructive feedback, that person can come up to me, give me that feedback, and nobody's going to die or anything bad is going to happen, right? The only thing we're interested in is actually improving technically, professionally, however you want to look at it. So I find that this is not like a magic formula, but it helps to widen horizons a little bit and to develop a mindset where you have that high empathy level, but you can also draw your boundaries and your lines. So I would say look into coaching, see, especially as a team manager, as an engineering manager, team lead, people lead, whoever you are, look into coaching and see how you can support your people develop that mindset in one-on-ones, and then also in sort of the wider team setting, maybe through mediation processes, maybe through group coaching processes. There is a variety out there. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, totally. Thank you very much. And thank you for your presentation. It was amazing. And sometimes you need to create awareness, because even me, and I dig really into this kind of topic. I was not aware of this, that was even people with disabilities coding, because it's hard to imagine how can a person learn to code with disability. So yeah.
I would challenge you right there. Sorry, I have to add that time-wise. Because as I mentioned in my advocacy, and I continuously mention throughout, people with chronic illnesses, especially the ones with rare ones, right? Rare disabilities, rare chronic illnesses, we research. We are at the top of our game when it comes to knowledge. We have to take hard decisions every single day because maybe there is not a perfect treatment out there. So you have to choose between A and B, and both variables are difficult. So those are all qualities that you bring to the table to an employer, which maybe other people haven't had as experiences. And that actually makes us really cool managers, really good coders at the end of the day, because we have this very analytical, very organized mindset, but we also are able to take hard decisions. And if that isn't something that an employer wants, then what else would an employer want? So I see it more of as a strength and things that give you strength because you've had these experiences. And again, I can only recommend employers to hire people like that more proactively and to support people, because by having people on a team who are different, you are already creating an environment where other people who have other things that they deal with already feel more integrated.
Absolutely.
That's one example.
Difference is a really good word for that, I'd say. This is really important. Like, be diverse, like, think out of the box. This is always helping. And always embrace what's decisive. Okay, thank you so much, Franziska. I already see you around on Twitter and everywhere where we could even follow you, and I think we will cross our roads anytime, anyway. And with that, I would like to invite Joe from New York to the screen. And I will kick Franziska out now. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Stick around. I think you're still available in the chat. And let's see if Joe is already ready to share his screen. So where is he? I think we lost him.
Very good talk.
There he is. My God, you're Joseph. Joseph Bender. So maybe it takes a while until he accepts. And there you already is.
Yes, you have to accept a lot of things.
There you are. Hello, Joseph. Good to see you.
Hello. Good to see everyone. Hey. How's it going? Can you see and hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Sounds good. I have a little drag here on this Linux box, but I will try not to mention it that often. It's sometimes disturbing. I see you don't have your Open Zeppelin t-shirt on. Which company are you working for?
I know. I got my Blockstack hoodie on. Don't worry.
The Blockstack hoodie. I like that.
Yeah.
I like a t-shirt of them. Cool. With that, I'll first kick Joao. See you in a minute.
Bye.
Very good. And well, I think you will introduce yourself anyway. But I think there have been some Blockstack people already talking at Coding Berlin. If I remember, there was Friedke once, Friedke Müfke, and there was one guy, Janne L, I think was from Belgium, if I remember right. It's a little bit some time ago. But we have some connection to the Blockstack people, and this is why I'm very proud to have you here, actually.
Nice. Glad to hear.
And with that, I think I will hand over the whole stage to you. And yeah, good luck. You have, let's say, half an hour, I'd say.
Half an hour, yeah. This presentation took me like 45 minutes earlier this week, so I'm going to try to rifle through it.
Sounds good. I'm off. It's yours. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Also, thank you, Franziska, for that very insightful presentation. Wow. A lot of stuff I had never really considered before. So very informative. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Let's dive right in. My name is Joe Bender. I am a month into my journey at Blockstack as a developer evangelist. Right now, my focus is on empowering the community to build crazy blockchain tools and powerful applications. I'd say my favorite quarantine activity has been browsing Bitcoin halvening memes. If you're into the blockchain space, you know that the Bitcoin mining reward just halved, and it came with an onslaught of funny memes and videos and great conversation. Oh no, you can see my toolbar down here. I want to automatically hide the taskbar. There we go. There we go. During this talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about Blockstack, the Stacks 2.0 blockchain, the Clarity programming language, and the hackathon, which is why we're here, that is going on right now. Blockstack, if you haven't heard of us before, we're an open source effort to develop software software that provides an alternative to the traditional centralized architecture of the internet that's kind of established with walled gardens of Facebook and big banking and all these corporations harvest your information and then monetize it to advertisers, and they get paid for that instead of you. We think that users should be fairly compensated for their participation in a network. So we developed a full stack decentralized computing network that enables this new generation of applications where devs and users interact fairly, securely, and privately. Blockstack uses blockchain technology to accomplish this, and we build protocols, developer tools that return digital rights back to the user. Blockchain has been a pretty big buzzword the last few years. I think a lot of companies either built a blockchain or picked a blockchain, and then we're like, look, we have a blockchain. What do we do with it? We kind of created the goal of a user-controlled internet and then realized that blockchain was a tool or a solution to accomplish that instead of just blindly picking a blockchain and throwing a dart at it. So Stacks 2.0 is our big focus this year. The Stacks 1.0 blockchain has been live for a little while, and now we're gravitating towards Stacks 2.0. The testnet is live right now. It went live around 2 or 3 weeks ago, I believe. So our thesis is that Web3 is going to introduce true internet ownership, and it's going to be anchored to the most secure blockchain, Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a household name. It's kind of king of the cryptocurrency hill right now. It has the security. It has the massive network effect. And we really believe that Web3 will be anchored in it. And Stacks 2.0 kind of represents the blueprint by which Web3 can emerge and scale on Bitcoin. Stacks 2.0 was designed with security, scalability, and speed in mind. Munib, our CEO, has been developing Blockstack for 5-6 years now, pre-Ethereum, the #2 cryptocurrency, since around 2014, 2015. So he's done a lot of observing and taking notes. And then when we've developed Stacks 2.0, it's an improvement on a lot of obstacles or frustrations we see in the space. It's got some really cool, unique mechanisms, some novel ideas. Stacks miners forward BTC actually to participate in mining, and Stacks holders can earn Bitcoin by participating in the consensus mechanism. And we think it's exciting that people will earn a base currency like Bitcoin. Mainnet launch sometime this year. We're shooting for around summer, but we believe that software shouldn't be shipped until it is 100% ready and free of bugs and flawless. So we're heads down, hard at work to bring it to you sometime in 2020. 3 really cool concepts that are introduced with Stacks 2.0 is stacking. It's kind of the novel value transfer mechanism we've dreamed up, and it allows Stacks holders to earn that Bitcoin for actively participating. Clarity is the smart contract language for using Stacks 2.0. It's what the hackathon is all about right now. Went live a couple weeks ago. We've seen some really awesome tinkering and boilerplate smart contracts come out of the community. And proof of transfer, acronym POX, is a new mining mechanism we proposed for the stacking consensus algorithm, and it enables benefits not possible with proof of work or proof of stake. Proof of work is really electricity intensive. Proof of stake is locking up large amounts of the cryptocurrency with maybe some unintended consequences. So we're looking forward to seeing how proof of transfer works. Smart contracts. This is a little 101 crash course in smart contracts. If you're not super privy to the blockchain space yet, you might not know that smart contracts encode and enforce rules for modifying the set of data on the blockchain that's shared between the nodes. Entities don't necessarily need to trust each other. That's kind of the glory of the blockchain, is selfish behavior is incentivized, but it also benefits the system. It's kind of solving the tragedy of the commons by people looking out for themselves. They're actually helping to uphold the security of the network. Smart contracts exist on the blockchain. Anyone can query them, and you submit a transaction to the blockchain to kind of trigger them. It can result in new transactions. A smart contract can new transaction, and applications built on the blockchain kind of take advantage of smart contracts to manage the global state that is visible to the public. Blockchains have also been called a state machine because there's a state. Bob has 10 Alice has 20, there's a transaction, maybe Bob sends Alice 5, and then the next state is Alice has 15 and Bob has 5. So a blockchain is literally just a chain of states, a current appraisal of the system. Anyone can audit blockchains in order to independently verify that an app's global shared state is being managed correctly and according to all the smart contract rules. Blah, 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 blah. What does that enable? What does that even do? Use cases, access control, allowing you to log into an app or a website using self-sovereign identity. Non-fungible tokens you might have heard of got pretty big on Ethereum a couple years ago with CryptoKitties or digital collectibles. There's also Gods Unchained, which is kind of a Hearthstone clone, where instead of a centralized corporation owning all the assets and all the trading cards, digital trading cards, the users own them, and it's in a decentralized network. Kind of an interesting shift away. Also, business model templates. You could sign up for subscriptions on a blockchain where a smart contract is paying out a certain application once a month. It also enables app-specific blockchains. We ran a really cool pilot on app.co where we had over 100 Blockstack apps built on the Stacks 1.0 blockchain using Blockstack ID authentication to log in. And it also enables the fun blockchain buzzword of DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. These are decentralized companies that are run by smart contracts and by people funding it with a certain token or cryptocurrency. Smart contract crash course for you there. The Clarity programming language, that's what we're really excited about now, hoping to give you some clarity with this presentation. It's the programming language we developed for the Stacks 2.0 blockchain. It differs from a lot of other smart contract languages in that it's interpreted, so it's human readable and auditable. Anyone can look at it and kind of discern the functionality. It's also decidable. You can determine precisely what code is going to be executed for any function. And it gives that ability to write fully expressive smart contracts that anchor to Bitcoin. And this is huge. Smart contracts and dApps kind of took off on Ethereum because the Solidity programming language allowed for more expressive types of applications, which drew a lot of people to Ethereum. And I think adding and enabling this sort of functionality while also leveraging the security and network effect of Bitcoin is a huge innovation. We're really hoping to see apps built on Blockstack that come with the peace of mind of the Bitcoin champion blockchain. Clarity uses a strong static type system. It's Lisp-based. Lisp has a long history. A lot of developers are familiar with it, which is why we chose to base it off of it. It's a fully parentheticized prefix notation, kind of a classic coding architecture that people will feel comfortable with. Clarity smart contracts are composed of two parts, a data space and a set of functions. The set of functions is the code that is executing, and the data space is the little storage on the blockchain that belongs to that smart contract that allows it to store variables or data. Users call smart contracts public functions by broadcasting a transaction to the blockchain that invokes that function. And function arguments in database schemas require specific types, and use of types is checked when you launch that smart contract.
Joe, if I may interrupt you just for a second, because I've
Please
seen
do.
2 questions. If you want, you can take them now because they may be quite important.
Yeah, absolutely. I would appreciate you throwing any questions from YouTube my way.
Exactly. There's actually one on YouTube that is quite simple to answer. I'm nearly answering it on my own, but I thought maybe it's good if you do that. And it's called, what are smart contract languages if they are not interpreted?
What are smart contract languages if they are not interpreted? I'm tempted to have you try to answer that. But I think Solidity is compiled before it goes to the blockchain, so it gets transcribed into a completely non-human readable set of hexadecimal characters, and it's just a long string of gibberish. I think maybe JSON that's compiled pre-blockchain, so then on Ethereum, the Ethereum virtual machine can understand what it's saying. It's kind of an extra step in deploying contracts to the blockchain. So by having the smart contract language be interpreted and then the Stacks 2.0 blockchain able to read that type of human readable syntax and language, it takes an obfuscation step out of development. I think maybe that answered your question correctly.
Exactly it. Actually, in Solidity, you compile that to binary, and the binary is represented as a string on the transaction, or as a string in the state of the finally deployed smart contract. So Clarity is really different in that the source code is visible, right? So you can read the source code on the state of the blockchain, which is quite amazing.
Yep, exactly. And thanks for helping to clarify there. It's been a while since I dusted off the Solidity chops there.
We're doing Solidity all day on Turbina. This is why we're quite familiar. But there's another one from Lars here in the chat. This is rather simple. Clarity is only available for Bitcoin blockchains, right?
Yes, Clarity is only available for the Stacks 2.0 blockchain. The Stacks 2.0 blockchain is leveraging Bitcoin in a couple ways using proof of transfer or proof of burn. We found ways to anchor to Bitcoin and use its security and use it in the consensus mechanism. But Clarity is solely interacting with the Stacks 2.0 blockchain. It's the language that the smart contracts that exist on the Stacks 2.0 blockchain use. Now, some of those smart contracts are interacting with the Bitcoin blockchain or the consensus mechanism or mining on the Stacks 2.0 blockchain, but you're never directly interacting with Bitcoin, like sending a Bitcoin transaction using a Clarity smart contract.
Cool. Sorry to interrupt that. Now it's your turn.
Oh, no problem. I don't have YouTube up, so I appreciate you shooting.
No, this is why I'm shorting in. If you don't like that, you just have to tell me, then I will stop that. But sometimes it's helpful, right? Because these questions are quite natural, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. I want them to remain in the relevant part of the presentation.
Absolutely. Let's go.
So only the associated smart contract can access that data space in the blockchain. So if that smart contract saves a certain variable or certain value in that data space, another smart contract cannot go directly into that data space and pull that variable. We finished this slide. So some differences to other languages, and these were some security vulnerabilities that happened in the last few years. Some big CoinDesk headlines that you might have seen. The 0x decentralized exchange going down and the DAO hack on Ethereum, the original DAO hack. The first one was an assembly and compilation error. And the next two, the DAO hack and the multi-sig hack, were reentrancy bugs that would be impossible with the Clarity smart contract language. A bunch of transactions aborting. I've had some trouble getting transactions to clear on Ethereum sometimes because of the gas issue and gas limits and how much gas you're applying to your transaction. That can be a little hard to understand for new users, just beginners coming in from the mainstream. So we eliminated the out of gas problem by making Clarity non-Turing complete. Also, auditing is much simpler with Clarity. The auditing business in Solidity and Ethereum is huge. There's so many auditing firms out there, Consensus Diligence or Open Zeppelin. It's a huge business because smart contract vulnerabilities are still kind of unknown and attack vectors are obfuscated and yet to be discovered. So we think auditing on Clarity is going to be much easier with the human readable, decidable language. Key rules and limitations. I'm off the slide there a bit. The only primitive types in Clarity are booleans, integers, buffers, and principals. Principals are what we call both standard and contract addresses. It can be a little hard to grasp at first, but assets in Clarity and on the blockchain are owned by objects of the principal type, meaning that any object of the principal type can own an asset. Recursion is also illegal, and there are no anonymous functions. Looping may only be performed via map, filter, or fold. And there is support for lists. However, the only variable list lengths in the language appear as function inputs. And there's no support for append or join. I encourage, if you're really getting your hands dirty, to pop into the Discord. A lot of people have been working on workarounds or just ways to implement some of these mechanisms in Clarity with different avenues. Also, variables are immutable in Clarity. I'll tear through all this pretty quick. It's a little dense. Just an example Clarity smart contract here. As you can see, it's 14 lines of code. Not complicated at all. This is a tutorial that is live on the Blockstack website if you'd like to tinker around. But you can see an integer is defined at the first line with defined data variable, initializes a new counter variable set to 0. It's stored in that data space owned by the smart contract. Then we define a public function there that gives access to the counter variable from outside the current smart contract. So you can call this smart contract and get the variable. Like I said, you can't go straight into the data space. You have to call this smart contract to access the variable for you. And that is done with the var get statement. A little further down, the begin statement evaluates the multi-line expression beneath it. As you can see, this is just a counter application that has an increment function that's adding 1 and a decrement function subtracting 1. I know this is rocket science. In this case, these functions are used to set the new value and return the new value. We like test-driven development at Blockstack, and this tutorial had 4 little tests. One checking that it's a valid contract with valid syntax and it's been deployed. And then, does the counter variable start at 0? Can it increment? Can it decrement? For the first test, you can see on line 8 in the counter.clare contract that this is in the testing. This is in the testing file in the project directory. This shows where to find the counter.clarity contract on line 8. It specifies the address of the contract there. And this kind of just creates a transaction query that tests that the syntax of the contract is valid, and it will pass the first test because of this. Next 3 tests are much easier and functional, and can wrap your head around it more easily. The first one should start at 0. It creates a counter, gets the counter variable, and then asserts is it equal to 0. It will pass the first test. Then this next test tests that increment method or function. It executes the increment function, which means it should go up by 1. So then it asserts and checks that it's up equal to 1. Then it calls it again just for fun, and then checks if it's equal to 2. Once it increments up to 2, then we're on to the next test of the decrement method. We subtract 1, we call that decrement method, then we assert equal await get counter. Is it equal to 1? Yes, it is, which means we decrement again, back down to 0. Is it equal to 0? Yes, it is. Boom, we've passed all of our tests. So that might have been a little intense for you, but it just demonstrates a simple testing suite, simple contract, not many lines of code, and you could potentially read through this, not a master coder, and kind of understand what all these tests are doing. So I'm going to dive into the Clarity Hackathon now a little bit. There are 2 phases. It runs from May 14th to June 30th, but it's broken up into 2 phases. First phase right now is all focused on smart contracts, like what I just showed you, and it runs from May 14th to May 29th. The next phase, which is for more robust tooling, developer tooling, kind of one step above the smart contract challenge, that runs from June 3rd to June 30th. Both of these you can join at any time. Let's say you're swamped up until the 28th, and then you sign up and you bang out some crazy smart contracts in 24 hours and get them in by May 29th. That is acceptable. We know it's a crazy time right now with quarantine. You might have a lot of free time. You might be super swamped. And we would love to see you join at any time and try to throw together some contracts. So first phase is open now. It opened last Thursday, and we're using the Gitcoin platform and their Hackathon Explorer to facilitate the hackathon. You can win up to $13.50 USD in prizes this first phase, because there are 3 levels of difficulty. The first level has a prize of $50. The second level has a prize of $100, and the third level has a prize of $200. Then there is a grand prize, and the best contract out of all of them will get 1,000 buckaroos in USD, which means if you submit a contract to all 3 levels and you win the grand prize, you could win up to 1350. So we're just trying to kick the tires to Clarity programming language. Excited to get a bunch of devs in front of it, tinkering, breaking eggs, making omelets, and seeing kind of pushing the limits of what it can do. So I'm going to run through the 3 levels really quick. Level 0 is the basic smart contracts. You just got your hammer out. Like I said, $50 prizes at this level, and we're giving out 5 of them. And these are the lowest hanging fruit of the smart contract tree. These are going to be basic smart contracts, rudimentary, demonstrating just a handful of Clarity design principles. You got an introductory understanding of the language. It's going to be pretty self-contained, a Clarity tech demo of sorts. Very small number of methods, functions, variables, etc. Elementary testing, pretty basic commenting. More of a Bob Ross painting than a Mona Lisa if you're an artist out there. That counter tutorial that I showed you, that would be a good example of this level 0. You know, it was only 20 lines of code, but it had some functional testing and did something, but was more just a tech demo. Level 1, you're upgrading to a little toolbox there. This is the intermediate level, $100 prizes at this level, and we're giving out 7 of them. This ain't your first rodeo, but you're no Steve Wozniak either. This is for proficient smart contract devs who want to build contracts that are showing off the principles of Clarity, one step above basic, but probably not ready to be implemented in a mass consumer application. It'll show an expanded functional smart contract that's really taking advantage of some of the Clarity design principles, not an exhaustive demonstration. It's going to display that you have a decent competency with Clarity, super well commented code describing the major events and functions within the contract, thoughtful testing that verifies the functionality. And I attached an escrow contract as a good example of this level. Escrow is a pretty common smart contract around the blockchain space. It's a contract that's taking money for X amount of parties and then distributing it based on a certain set of conditions. Requires a decent amount of code, but certainly not 1,000 lines. Level 2, these are for the advanced smart contract developers. We've upgraded to a construction crane over there. $200 prizes up for grabs at this level. We're giving away 10 of them. These are for devs that want to dive right in the deep end. Maybe you have tinkered with Solidity a little bit. We're looking for powerful, robust, extensive smart contracts that really show off the full potential of the Clarity smart contracting language. Clean code, descriptive documentation, strict testing, the works. These are going to be the super powerful, robust, fully fledged smart contracts. Exhibits creative and novel use of the Clarity language. We want you to think outside the box. Super well designed, logically structured, real world applicability, comprehensive testing suite, all that good stuff. Production grade application. Makes full use of the Clarity language reference. I put the reference there. That is the hyper technical page that just lists all of everything. So we really want to see you getting in there, messing around with Clarity. And I attach a non-fungible token Clarity example contract here. Super comprehensive contract. If you know about NFTs like CryptoKitties or digital assets, it requires a lot of methods deciding who is the owner, how to send it, when to mint it, all sorts of functionality that needs to be implemented. So we were able to lock up Simon Cowell and Gordon Ramsay as your judges. Wait. No, I'm just getting in. No, they had to drop. But we have the second best judges, DeWalker and Aaron Blockstack. They are going to be your judges. They're from our engineering team. Super intelligent engineers. Really excited to have them tear into some of these submissions. The judging criteria, if you've done a hackathon before, might be par for the course. Design, is it well structured, broken into logical functions, like I said? Functionality, does it work? Use of Clarity reference, are you really digging into Clarity? The whole point of this hackathon is to rattle the cage on Clarity and really see what it can do. So we want to focus on fleshing out all the Clarity reference there. Originality, creativity, this is going to be a difficult one because a lot of the building blocks of smart contracts are out there already in other smart contracting languages. So we want to see if you can think outside the box and come up with maybe a novel use case or novel contract that hasn't really been done before. Real world viability, would it be applicable to a real world dApp or an application right now? And then documentation and commenting. This is the really fun one that everyone loves. We want a comprehensive documentation with it, really describing what the contract is doing and your experience with developing it, maybe a README, and also clean commented code throughout the entire smart contract. We want someone with no smart contract experience to be able to go through and read the comments and figure out what's going on in there. How to get involved. First and foremost, it is hosted on the Gitcoin website. So that is the link to our hackathon listing on Gitcoin. Gitcoin is a really cool platform that kind of does bounties for developers, but they've also spun up a hackathon war machine. They just crank out hackathons every single month. They have a crazy thriving developer base, bunch of passionate builders. So we're excited to get Clarity in front of them. Also, we have the community.blockstack.org/Clarity Hackathon. That's like our official homepage, and that's going to be your one-stop shop for Clarity resources and information and the knowledge base. We've assembled all of like the internal first-party Blockstack resources, but also a lot of great external community-made resources on that site. A couple other links there I'll brush over because we're running out of time. Blockstack forum is great for longer form stuff. Contribute code on GitHub. Community.blockstack has a lot of events or meetups. And like I said, $1,000 the best overall contract. This is the Gitcoin platform. Give you a little crash course here. You can click on the link to the bottom left there that says Clarity Hackathon by Blockstack to go straight to the hackathon, or navigate there manually through the nav bar at the top by clicking products and then hackathons. Also, there's a weekly action on the right side there. Gitcoin has recently implemented this cool feature called Quests, which is kind of a Pokemon style learning tool. With the Gitcoin Find Your Clarity quest, you can read a little blog post on Clarity and then take a little quiz where you're battling another bot and win this limited edition Clarity Hackathon kudos. Gitcoin kudos are kind of badges that display on your profile that show your notoriety around the site. And we're really happy how this Vaporwave Clarity Hackathon kudos turned out. This is what the Clarity Hackathon listing looks like. Everything is hosted on GitHub through GitHub issues, and it's populated on this prizes page. There are the 3 levels. If you're a beginner, click on level 0 and start work. Starting work on Gitcoin means you're beginning work on the submission. So you have to signal that you started work, and it'll let the moderators, such as myself, know that you are participating. The 3 levels are there. Click on whichever one you want to do. There's also a town square and chat, which is the Gitcoin native communication channels. Town square is more of like a Facebook timeline. Chat's more of like Discord, asynchronous. Definitely pop in there to meet some new hackers and just discuss projects. This is the Blockstack Discord. If I had to encourage you to go to one place, it would be the #hackathons channel on the Blockstack Discord. Blockstack employees are hanging out there all the time. Our community power users are in there. This is a great example of one of our great community members, Freaker, who I think Stefan mentioned, helping out Harini from Block Survey. A lot of great collaborative help going on in there. So if you have a question, pop in. Also, one of our engineers, Ludo, just had an AMA in there. So there's a lot of great answers to commonly asked questions in there right now. Blockstack forum, little screenshot there. Like I said, better for longer form posts that maybe you want people to chew on for a day and come back with a more comprehensive answer. If you need any German speaking assistance, Alex Grabe has volunteered. He is based in Santa Barbara, California, but is German speaking. So if you didn't understand a word that I just said, feel free to contact him through his email there, alex@blockstack.com, or over Twitter, or pop into the Discord and shoot him a DM. I think I would just reiterate that if you are interested at all, need help with anything, pop in the Discord. I am a mentor for this hackathon. I'd be happy to help hold your hand, navigate you through the sign up or submission process. Yeah, I think we're just really excited about getting a new smart contract language in front of eager devs and seeing what they build. Thanks a lot for having me. Blown away by some of the presentations here today. Really insightful stuff that I would not be exposed to normally. So I'm really happy about having this platform to share some stuff.
Kim Jong-un approves.
Oh, I got Kim Jong-un.
Thank you so much for sharing all these insights with us, Joe. That's really great stuff, actually, because if you're on these old, or no, I mean like the major smart contract platforms, it's quite a breath of fresh air to see some Lisp in there, even though Lisp is quite old. Never mind. Cool stuff. We have found some questions on the way, mostly asked by us actually, but here's Lars. Lars, do you want to join our stage? Ping me anywhere. Or maybe he's not listening. I will just invite him anyway. Yes. I think.
Yeah, I forgot you can't read the comments on Crowdcast. I answered you there that I'd like to join you. Yeah, but here's my question. Yeah, with which test suites can you test your smart contracts? Like the code you showed for the tests looked a little bit like Jest, but
I believe currently we're using the Mocha suite. If you've heard of that before, I know people were asking similar questions yesterday. I know there's an accompanying Mocha file in that project directory that sets up all the dependencies and libraries and whatnot that you need for Mocha, and then all of the tests are written in a separate file.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I'm not too sure about using other types of testing suites, but I'm sure it would be possible, and one of our engineers could maybe help you out with that. I know a lot of people are curious about using their favorite tool or framework or IDE or something. We put out a nice Clarity LSP for VS Code, and someone was wondering if it could be translated into another text editor, and our engineers are always down to help out with kind of that type of standardization, getting our tools or APIs or syntaxes able to be accessed with any framework, any IDE, any terminal, stuff like that.
Thank you.
I'm currently only aware of Mocha right now, though.
It looks rather Mocha-ish, but it's, I mean, test suites are around for many smart contract languages. It's quite usual to have them, but as always, you also have to use them. And sometimes it's not that easy because you need the dependencies. If I may also ask maybe the last question here, do you support upgradable contracts, like contract proxies, like OpenZeppelin did?
Upgradable contracts? That's a good question, and I do not know. I don't believe we do. I believe contracts are immutable once they are deployed. At least that's my legacy blockchain knowledge coming from Ethereum.
But this is maybe a great challenge for the hackathon, because
absolutely.
You deploy the proxy contract. This one deploys other contracts. So I guess doing that the right way, you're the next OpenZeppelin, and well, you can take away the grand prize. Just as a hint.
I'd encourage you to maybe shoot Alex an email or pop it to the Discord, and one of our engineers would be able to answer it much better than myself.
All right, cool. So thank you for taking the time, Joe. I know it's noon, right, at New York?
It's 2:18 right now. We're getting in there, getting inching closer.
So I hope you already had lunch, or then you will have it.
Yeah, it's sitting over there. I've been waiting. Thank you so much for having me. Blown away by the participation here and the interest. So always appreciate it.
So if you want to reach out to Joe, I think you're on Twitter. You're available.
Oh yeah, let me.
We'll also put you on our Coding Earth website, so you will be able to get in touch with him anytime, I guess. Might be time shift if you're from Germany or from Dubai.
Joe at blockstack.com. This is my email. I already sent that message. Oh, Interesting. Regardless, I'm going to throw the link to the hackathon listing on.
I already put it in the call to action down there, so people can
Oh
already click.
my! I know everything I'm typing. It's like it's already been posted. You are on it.
I try my very best to support you, actually. So no, you know, I'm not getting anything for that. This is not advertisement. I'm sorry. No. This is really. I like it.
Yeah, I would just say we're super accessible. We are here to help. It's such a nascent technology. We just launched Clarity, so it's much less here, tinker with this, and more of a let us help you tinker with this. We want it to be a really bi-directional hackathon, working with all of our hackers pretty closely.
Cool. So thank you very much, Joe. And if you want, you can stick around, have a chat with the people, whatever you want. And thank you so much for joining us. It was a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. With that, I will hand over to the last talk of the day, and I maybe don't even have to introduce him because I already have seen him in the very beginning. This is my very good colleague Lars talking about TypeScript. Give it away for Lars.
Yeah.
I'll speak up myself. It's up to you.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm trying to stay calm and easy, but if I'm going too fast, please someone interrupt me and slow me down. Even if there are questions, interrupt me at any time. Yeah, as Stefan said, my talk is about TypeScript, and I want to show you that you don't need to be afraid of TypeScript. You don't need to be scared of TypeScript. You better get types or die debugging. So my name is... okay, now it shows. My name is Lars. I'm a front-end something at Turbine Kreuzberg. Front-end FUBA means I'm an architect, I'm a UX specialist, I'm a developer, an engineer. I do everything related to front-end. You can see my Twitter and GitHub handle, and I'm an administrator and moderator at a German developer community called webdevs.xyz. where you can find help in any web dev related question like backend, front end, and even general discussions of any kind. So just to clarify this, if you're already working with TypeScript, you won't learn that much new here. This talk is more dedicated to the people who are familiar with using JavaScript, but are a little bit afraid of putting too much effort in switching to TypeScript. Yeah, if you are familiar with JavaScript, this is your chance. What is TypeScript? TypeScript is basically just a superset for JavaScript. This means you can use any JavaScript code and it's already valid TypeScript. It just adds a lot of functionality on top of TypeScript, on top of JavaScript. It is developed and maintained by Microsoft, but it's strongly community-driven. It provides optional static typing classes and interfaces, which JavaScript does not. As I already said, it's a language building up on top of JavaScript. It adds new features and advantages, but, and that's important, browsers can't execute it. It only runs at compile and develop time, but with a compiler, for example, with Webpack or the native TypeScript compiler, it compiles directly into vanilla JavaScript. Just another background information: who uses TypeScript? Your favorite front-end framework like Angular, Vue.js, or React, or name it any other. Companies like Microsoft, eBay, JetBrains, and Ubisoft, and of course, many, many, many more. For the usage statistics, in January, it was number 12 on the most popular languages on GitHub. Why should you use TypeScript? just a very small code example here with JavaScript. You have a function which should add two numbers and return the sum of these two numbers. So if you put in here this console log, execute this function with the two parameters, and you give them strings, you might assume you won't get the sum of number 2 and number 3, which would be 5, but you rather get back another string, which will be 23. And this is directly unwanted behavior at runtime, which you won't know when you write the code. Of course, if you're a good developer and knows that JavaScript is a little bit, easy going with numbers and strings, then you would know this, but you might not recognize this at the time you write the code. And another big plus for TypeScript is the advanced autocompletion you can get from IDEs. Here we have another bad pun. I like type hints and I cannot lie. So the question now is, why don't you use TypeScript yet? In my community, and when I ask or when I get in contact with different developers, there are some common excuses I always hear. Like, the base setup to integrate TypeScript in our project is way too hard. Or, I really want to try it, but I don't have the time or the money to refactor all my code base. Or I don't want to put that much, or I don't want to put that much effort into additional files and type definitions and work that might occur when I add TypeScript to the project. And I want to show you that these excuses are wrong. So the excuse number one was the setup. What do you need for a great TypeScript experience? I want to type free. For a basic TypeScript experience, you need a project that contains or uses JavaScript or even Node.js. You need a Node.js environment to run the TypeScript compiler, native on Node. And for a great experience, you need an IDE or an editor with TypeScript support. And I strongly recommend at this point Visual Studio Code by Microsoft, because you might guess it, TypeScript is from Microsoft, Visual Studio Code is from Microsoft. So it might be clear that Visual Studio Code has the best TypeScript integration. If you really want to go advanced with TypeScript, or you have an advanced project setup, maybe containing Webpack, then you can use the TypeScript loader. If you use it with Vue CLI, you can add the Vue CLI plugin. And if you use ESLint, what I strongly recommend, of course, there is a TypeScript ESLint plugin. And of course, many, many more, like for React and you name it. Excuse number two. Do I really have to refactor everything? No, you can type as you are. As you can see, here we have valid TypeScript code. This is not that much different from basic JavaScript. You have some vanilla JS query selector. You have the add numbers function and an onClick function with a callback. And there's not that much typing in there. You only have the numbers for the arguments of the function, of the add numbers function, and a callback type for this function. And you define what kind of element the query selector returns. But I go deeper into this in the coding example. But what I simply wanted to show you is that you don't have to refactor everything. do you really have to add a mass of files and declarations? No, devs just want to have types. And of course, it depends on what third-party scripts you are using or third-party libraries you are using, and how deep you want to go with your type declaration. But as the excuse before said, type as you are. You can start easy, which you in the beginning, of course, should. Or you can type out everything and get as complex as you want. For example, here are some possible overhead or additions. Most libraries, like, for example, the date FNS library, bring their own declaration files, and with these, you can automatically use the auto-completion out of the box. If a library doesn't bring their own types, you can go to definitely typed and look there if they have what you need. And if you still don't find them there, you might have to write them on your own. As far as it concerns your own code, as I already said, you type them as you like it or need it. But when you grow to love TypeScript as much as I do, you tend to really type as much as you can. And now it's TypeScript time.
Before you start doing so, we got a question on YouTube.
All right.
Is TypeScript more adopted by front-end or server-side JavaScript developers?
Sorry, you were interrupted. Can you repeat?
Is TypeScript more adopted by front-end or server-side JavaScript developers?
I think more by front-end developers, because the Node.js implementation came quite late. The real good Node.js support just came this year, I think. At least I tried it last year, and interpreting TypeScript or Node.js code with TypeScript was quite hard. And this year it worked right out of the box. So I think the community around TypeScript is more based on front-end developers. I hope that answers the question.
You'll never know, but for me it was good.
All right. So TypeScript. Let's wait for the screen. Okay. So as you already saw, we have this basic script here. Like, this is JavaScript. You don't get any errors in here.
Scale it up a little bit, please.
Better now?
Guess so, yes.
Okay. You have basic JavaScript here. You won't get any errors. You won't get any warnings or something. You simply can execute the function add, pass 2 arguments in there, and then you get the return back. I prepared here this little HTML. You have 2 inputs. Let me just add the browser in there. All right, you have 2 input elements. They already have the type number. You have the submit button and a input element which will show us the result in there, of what you type in the first input. So the first thing you have to do is you basically rename it to a TypeScript file. Now you still see the IDE doesn't complain about anything, because there are no types set yet. This is still valid JavaScript and valid TypeScript. So we start with the HTML elements. We can say we will get input 1, query selector, and I think it was input 1. Yeah, naming is my strength. And now one thing TypeScript already gives you is when you hover the function query selector, it already shows you it will return an element here, because it does not know what query selector actually gets from your code. How could it? I will get into this a little more in a bit. We have input 2. I forgot it's an ID. And we have result input. Which had the ID result, I think. Let me check it. No, of course it was input 3. All right, and we have the submit button. I make it very easy on this. Say, no, I only have one button. I will get this one. Okay. So now if we want to execute the function add when we click the submit button. So we say submit button. Oh, yeah, and I could say already in here as HTML button element. So because I know this will return a button here, I can declare it as an HTML button element and will automatically get the matching auto-completion in Visual Studio Code for a button. So I can say on click. And on click, I want to call the function add. So you won't get this in JavaScript. In JavaScript, you type add and everything is fine. In TypeScript, it already says you expected 2 arguments but got 0. So you have to pass 2 arguments. To do this, we have to get the values from the input elements. So 1 is input 1 value. No, not node value, but value. And now, again, here you see value does not exist on type element. This is, again, because TypeScript does not know which kind of element you get from a query selector when you select an input, an ID. It could be anything with this ID. It can be a button again, it can be a div, a span, or something. And again, now here you can again say, this would be an HTML input element. Same goes for input 2 and input 3. So, and as you see here now, value is available on the HTML input element. And value 2. Oh, just a little thing in between. As you saw in my slides, I got a lot of puns with types. If you can come up with your own, or you really liked or disliked anything, feel free to ping me on Twitter or post it in the comments. I'm really curious about new puns. And I will build them in for the next talks. So now that we have these 2 values, we can pass them as arguments in here. What is it complaining here? It's not assignable to type of mouse event. Okay. Check here. This is not a function, but a callback. It's rather like this. That's better. See, you wouldn't have seen this on develop time without TypeScript. Okay, now you could execute this, but you want to make sure that you really add only numbers, not strings. So you say you only accept numbers as arguments. And you really know you only want to return a number. So after the function parenthesis, when you declare the type here, it is the return type of the function. And again, now you see TypeScript is complaining because value of an input is always a string. It doesn't matter if you declare it as type number or type date or tell or email or something, it's always a string. So you simply can put a plus in front of it or use the parseInt function to transform it into a number. And here now you see you have a valid TypeScript and well-typed TypeScript script. As I said, this is not executable in the browser. And we don't have a script.js file now. So you have to run the TypeScript compiler to make it possible to be run in the browser. We have to wait for the console here.
While we're waiting, we can answer the YouTube question if you want.
Mm-hmm.
It goes, does it do anything to make dependency management less awful, like remove NPM?
No, this does not have anything to do with the node package manager or anything. This is really just transforming your source code. Yeah, it's really just for transforming the source code or having a better developer experience in the IDE, but you still need to compile it to make it executable by the browser. To be able to compile it to JavaScript, you need the TypeScript compiler. I'm not sure if no, I didn't. I will put the link into the slide. When you install the TypeScript compiler, you can simply run tsc on your file or on a folder or something. It works a second. Oh, I didn't save it. Interrupt, run again. It's done, and here we have a JavaScript file. So you see now the type definitions are gone. It's basic vanilla JavaScript. If we refresh it, we can type a 2 and a 3 and submit. And of course, we don't write it to the result input yet. So we have to go back. Then I can already show the watch option. So if we simply type watch in here, the TypeScript compiler runs in watch mode and compiles every time I save the file. Oh, now it complains that input is already declared in script.js. So let's see if it compiles anyway. We still have to write the result. So result input value should be and did it compile? No, because again now this will return a number. No, my phone is ringing. Great. This doesn't happen in a live meetup. My mobile is normally on.
Oh, I think we lost Lars because his mother called. I don't know what's happening now. Let's see if we can. Oh my God. It's embarrassing, right? So his demo was breaking and now he's gone. I think there he is again. Oh, it's me. So I invited him again. Could just be a matter of minutes. This is really funny. I mean, a phone call goes off and the TypeScript demo or everything is doing is just, well, canceled and the video is off. How can that happen? Possibly?
I kicked myself out, didn't I?
I would say so. There you are again. I was a little bit wondering if it's maybe my fault or something, but it looks good.
No, it was
and here you finalize your session, actually. Sorry.
Yeah. I would just want to say thank you. And I hope now, even for you, it smells like TypeScript.
That's so cool. So let's see if I find some applause for you. Here we go. Thank you so much, Lars, for giving this active talk. I know it means something to you because you are the guy who's always telling everybody you have to use TypeScript. Don't go with JavaScript anyway. And I learned a lot from you over the last couple of months. So thank you for that. With that, let's see. I didn't get any. So is there another question? No. Robert was asking about that NPM thing, right? I'm not sure, since we are still in the JavaScript world here, if you have ever heard about Dino?
Just last week, yeah, it came up.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't checked TypeScript support for Dino yet, of course. It's so fresh, at least for me. I haven't looked into it that much.
And this is what I definitely would recommend to have a talk next time if somebody would like to volunteer. We're absolutely keen on hearing something about Dino. I did not do anything productive with it yet, but I definitely understood what's going on there. And like they completely got rid of NPM and yarn and everything. They just import things from URLs, which looks totally weird if you first think about it, but in the end it compiles. And the native language of Dino is TypeScript. So now the funny thing about that one is that it's invented by Ryan Dahl, the inventor of Node.js in 2000, what was it? 2009 something. So he disappeared for some years and then he came back and then he was in the Node community, but he wasn't feeling that awfully well valued over there. And then he came up with that one. And this is maybe changing JavaScript as we know it forever, like the tooling. It's really cool stuff. And if you're into TypeScript, this is definitely something you should have a look at. That's great. So we didn't have any other questions on that one. And let's invite him again. Nobody else wants to join us here. And since that, I would say we give it away for Lars anyway. Oh, there is Joao. Hello, Joao. Good to see you again. Hope you had some fun with your child on the way.
I was laughing a lot. You guys having problem, and I was, they can figure it out.
I don't know, your mother calls and suddenly your video stream breaks. What's going on there? Never mind. But you did a great job. Like, well, in the end, it was working, was it?
Yes.
Like what you're setting up. Great job. And it was live coded. I love that.
Yeah. Live coding is all. I think I never saw a live coding that never got wrong. Something goes also wrong with live coding. So remember, we never do live coding.
And Coding Earth is the right place to do live coding because everybody, I mean, it's online anyway. Nobody can shout at you and say, that's bad. No, you just, fix errors. We all watch. Nobody cares. Yeah. It's really, really cool. The only thing I put down here is when to do the next meetup.
Well, first we have to get some speakers, right? Or do you have something in mind?
Yeah, we got, I mean, there's one guy asking lots of questions here, and I think he has to pay for that, right? Robert, I see you in the chat. I think, you have to take our stage next time. You can talk about platform as age. It's a great thing. But tell us something new, okay? I just invited him. Besides that, I think there is also another one, and we definitely need to find the Dino talk. So if somebody of you people watching this knows somebody who wants to give a Dino talk, this one is set for the next time. Just
highly appreciated, huh?
Yeah, me as well. Because then we don't have to do it. If you want to talk about Gatsby, I'm the biggest Gatsby fan you can imagine. This is also now supporting TypeScript, actually. So they were supporting TypeScript all the time, but now TypeScript is built into the, either it's built into the standard installation, or it's supported as a Gatsby recipe, which means you can just install it by saying Gatsby install recipe with TypeScript, and then you have Gatsby and TypeScript, which is amazing. It gives you all the powers that Lars just demonstrated. So my proposal is June 16th. Now this is on video. If it's not happening that time, you will know because you get emails saying it's not happening on June 16th, but most likely it will because it's a Tuesday and it's June and it's next month. That's what I would say. Right. With that, I think we are through with our official program.
Thanks all for joining.
Thank you all for joining. Who are still there. Thank you, YouTube, for joining. I know it's you're watching people talking and interaction is not that high, but next time, join us on Crowdcast. If you're lucky, you can also take the stage.
If you want to reach out to any of us or even to the Coding Earth community, we have the Slack channel where we can chat or talk. You can find it on coding.earth.
Coding.earth at the very bottom in the footer. There you can click the link and you won't be let in because it's not public, so you will have to ask us. There's a new contact form. Put your name on the contact form. We'll invite you instantly or reach out to us on Twitter Coding Earth, Twitter Coding Leipzig, Twitter Coding Stuttgart, Twitter Coding Berlin, Twitter Coding Portugal. Oh, we don't have Coding Portugal. Maybe we should launch that. Hello to Portugal anyway, to all the people out there. If you want to launch a coding, whatever it is, in your local city, I mean, currently with Corona, it doesn't make that much sense, but I mean, Corona will be gone, right? Maybe next year.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, maybe already in September. Nobody knows. Maybe Donald Trump knows. I don't know. Well, he knows for sure. But if this thing is over, I think we will definitely have meetups face-to-face again and meet all people in person. And just in case you're from Hamburg, you're from Dubai, you're from Paris, or you're from Anchorage, Alaska or something, I don't care. If you want to do a coding Anchorage, feel free to approach us. You get the logo, you get everything support you could imagine. And yeah, we'd be happy to see you here on stage. With that, I'd say we call it a day and see you next time. Watch out for new emails, watch our Twitter streams, the Facebook, whatever it is. And visit coding.earth for updates. Thanks a lot. And well, see you in June.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Cheerio.